Here's a question that might disturb you. When was the last time you had a real conversation with a friend? Not a text exchange about weekend plans, not a comment thread on their Instagram post, not a quick "how are you" in passing, but an actual, vulnerable, meaningful conversation where you both revealed something true about yourselves and left feeling more connected than when you started. If you're struggling to remember, you're not alone. You're part of what researchers are calling the friendship recession, a psychological epidemic that's quietly destroying the social fabric of modern life. Here are some statistics that should terrify you. The average American hasn't made a new friend in 5 years. 15% of men and 10% of women report having no close friends at all. Young adults today report feeling lonelier than elderly people in nursing homes. Despite being more connected than ever through social media, people report feeling more isolated, misunderstood, and emotionally disconnected than any generation in recorded history. But here's what's really disturbing. We're not losing friends because we don't want them. We're losing friends because we've forgotten what friendship actually is. We've replaced authentic human connection with a series of shallow, transactional, performance-based interactions that feel like friendship, but lack everything that makes friendship meaningful. Think about your current relationships. How many of them are built on who you really are versus who you pretend to be? How many involve genuine vulnerability and mutual support versus just sharing good news and maintaining pleasant surface-level interactions? How many people in your life know your real struggles, your actual fears, your authentic dreams, not just your carefully curated public persona? The truth is that most of what we call friendship today would be unrecognizable to previous generations. We've turned friendship into another form of social media performance, where the goal is to appear popular, successful, and happy, rather than to experience genuine intimacy, support, and connection. And here's where it gets really interesting. This friendship recession isn't just making us lonely, it's making us mentally ill, physically sick, and spiritually empty. Research shows that loneliness has the same health impact as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It increases your risk of depression by 50%, anxiety by 25%, and early death by 26%. We're literally dying from lack of authentic human connection. But the friendship recession isn't just a personal tragedy, it's a social catastrophe. When people don't have real friends, they become more susceptible to manipulation, more vulnerable to extremism, more likely to seek meaning in destructive places. A society without genuine friendship is a society without empathy, trust, or social cohesion. Today, we're going to explore why the most fundamental human need, authentic connection with other human beings, has become the rarest commodity in modern life. We're going to uncover the psychological, technological, and cultural forces that have systematically destroyed our capacity for real friendship. And we're going to discover how to rebuild that capacity before it's too late. This isn't just about having more friends. This is about reclaiming your humanity in a world that's increasingly designed to make you feel isolated, superficial, and emotionally disconnected from the people around you. Are you ready to discover why you feel so alone despite being surrounded by people? Are you ready to learn why your relationships feel hollow despite appearing successful on social media? Are you ready to understand what real friendship actually requires and why modern life makes it nearly impossible? Because what you're about to learn will change not just how you think about friendship, but how you think about what it means to be truly alive in a world that's forgotten how to be human. The friendship recession isn't happening to you. It's happening because of you, and that means you have the power to end it. Let me tell you about Jennifer. Jennifer had 847 friends on Facebook, 1,200 followers on Instagram, and a phone that buzzed constantly with notifications, messages, and social interactions. By every modern metric, she was incredibly popular. Her social media posts regularly got dozens of likes and comments. She was always invited to parties, events, and gatherings. She was what we might call a social success story. But Jennifer had a secret that she couldn't share with any of her 847 Facebook friends. She was desperately, crushingly lonely. Jennifer's breaking point came on her 30th birthday. She had thrown herself a party, posted beautiful photos, and received hundreds of birthday wishes from her online network. But as she lay in bed that night, scrolling through all the messages and comments, she realized something horrifying. She couldn't think of a single person she could call at 2 a.m. if she was having a panic attack. Not one person who knew her well enough to notice if she was struggling. Not one person she trusted enough to be vulnerable with. She had hundreds of acquaintances, but zero intimate friends. She had countless social interactions, but no meaningful connections. She had built an impressive social network, but had never learned how to build actual relationships. Jennifer started to examine her friendships more closely. Most of her Facebook friends were people she had met once or twice. Co-workers, college acquaintances, friends of friends. Their interactions consisted entirely of liking each other's posts and occasionally commenting with, generic encouragement. She realized she knew more about these people's vacation destinations than their actual values, more about their career updates than their real struggles, more about their relationship status than the quality of their relationships. Even her closer friendships had become strangely hollow. When she met up with her college friends, they spent most of their time taking photos for social media and updating each other on their achievements. When someone mentioned a problem, the conversation quickly shifted back to positive topics. When Jennifer tried to share something she was genuinely struggling with, her friends offered quick advice or reassurance, then changed the subject to something more comfortable. Jennifer realized that somewhere along the way, friendship had become performance. Her friends weren't people she could be authentic with. They were an audience she needed to entertain. She wasn't seeking genuine connection. She was seeking validation, approval, and the maintenance of her social image. But here's what really broke Jennifer's heart. She realized she had become the same kind of friend to others that they were being to her. When friends shared their struggles, she gave quick fixes instead of deep listening. When they needed support, she offered motivational platitudes instead of genuine presence. When they were vulnerable, she changed the subject because their pain made her uncomfortable. She had learned to be a good friend according to modern standards. Upbeat, supportive, always positive, never too needy, never too demanding. But she had never learned to be a real friend. Honest, vulnerable, present, willing to sit with someone's pain, willing to challenge someone when they needed it, willing to be inconvenienced by someone else's needs. Jennifer's story took a turn when she met Maria at a pottery class. Maria was nothing like Jennifer's other friends. She didn't have perfect Instagram photos. She didn't always have positive things to say. She didn't try to fix Jennifer's problems or cheer her up when she was sad. Instead, Maria did something that felt, revolutionary. She listened, really listened. Without judgment, without advice, without trying to make Jennifer feel better. When Jennifer shared her loneliness with Maria, Maria didn't tell her she had so many friends and should feel grateful. Instead, Maria shared that she had felt the same way for years, that she had also struggled with the difference between having a social network and having genuine connections. They talked for, 3 hours that day, not about achievements or updates or positive developments, but about their real fears, their actual struggles, their authentic experiences of being human. That conversation changed Jennifer's life because it reminded her what friendship was supposed to feel like. Real friendship wasn't about maintaining an image or providing entertainment. It was about being known, accepted, and supported as you actually are, not as you pretend to be. But here's the most important part of Jennifer's story. Developing one real friendship made her realize how empty all her other relationships had become. She started to understand that she had been living in what I call friendship simulation, going through the motions of social connection without experiencing any of the actual benefits of genuine human intimacy. Jennifer's experience reveals something profound about the modern friendship crisis. We haven't just lost the ability to make friends. We've lost the understanding of what friendship actually is. We've replaced authentic connection with social media interaction, genuine intimacy with curated sharing, real support with superficial encouragement. And the most tragic part, most of us don't even realize what we've lost because we've never experienced what real friendship feels like. We think the hollow, performance-based relationships we have now are normal. We think feeling lonely despite being surrounded by people is just part of modern life. But it's not normal, it's not inevitable, and it's not your fault. You've been living in a social system specifically designed to prevent authentic friendship while providing the illusion of connection. You've been taught to prioritize networking over bonding, popularity over intimacy, social success over emotional satisfaction. Jennifer's story is playing out in millions of lives around the world. People who have hundreds of social media connections, but no one they can really talk to. People who are surrounded by acquaintances, but starving for authentic friendship. People who have mastered the performance of social interaction, but lost the ability to experience genuine human connection. The question is, are you ready to stop performing friendship and start experiencing it? Now let's dive into the psychological and social forces that have created what researchers are calling the greatest loneliness epidemic in human history. What you're about to learn will explain why genuine friendship has become so rare and why most people feel emotionally disconnected despite being more socially connected than ever. First, let's understand what real friendship actually requires from a psychological perspective. Authentic friendship is built on 4 foundational elements that modern life systematically undermines: vulnerability, consistency, presence, and mutual investment. Vulnerability means being willing to show your real self, your struggles, fears, imperfections, and, your authentic emotions rather than just your highlight reel. But modern social culture has taught us that vulnerability is weakness, that sharing problems is being negative, that anyone who isn't constantly positive and successful is, bringing down the mood. Social media has weaponized this anti-vulnerability culture by creating platforms where everyone shares their best moments and hides their worst. We've learned to curate our lives for public consumption, which means we've learned to hide the very things that create authentic connection, our humanity, our struggles, our imperfections. Research by Dr. Brené Brown shows that vulnerability is actually the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. But more importantly for our discussion, vulnerability is the foundation of genuine intimacy. You cannot have real friendship without the willingness to be seen as you actually are, not as you think you should be. Consistency means showing up for people over time, through both good times and difficult times. Real friendship requires what psychologists call relational permanence, the understanding that your connection with someone continues even when you're not actively interacting with them. But modern life has trained us for what I call interaction-based relationships. We connect with people when it's convenient, entertaining, or beneficial, and we disconnect when they become inconvenient, boring, or needy. We've learned to treat people like apps, useful when we need them, easily deleted when we don't. The result is that most modern relationships are contingent rather than committed. People stay friends as long as it's easy, but honestly, they disappear the moment real friendship requires sacrifice, inconvenience, or emotional labor. Presence means giving your full attention to another person when you're with them. But we live in what researcher Linda Stone calls continuous partial attention. a state where we're always partially distracted by phones, notifications, or other demands on our consciousness. Studies show that even having a phone visible during a conversation reduces the quality of that conversation and the level of connection people feel. We've become so addicted to digital stimulation that we've lost the ability to be fully present with another human being, which in the end makes deep connection impossible. Mutual investment means both people actively working to maintain and deepen the relationship over time. Real friendship requires what researchers call bidirectional emotional labor. Both people caring about the other's well-being, both people making an effort to stay connected, both people prioritizing the relationship even when it's inconvenient. But modern friendship culture has, become increasingly transactional. We tend to evaluate friendships based on what we get from them rather than what we contribute to them. We expect friends to entertain us, support us, and make us feel good, but honestly, we're often reluctant to provide the same level of investment in return. Here's where the psychology gets really interesting. Humans evolved in small groups where survival depended on deep, committed relationships with a limited number of people. Our brains are wired for what anthropologist Robin Dunbar calls Dunbar's number. The cognitive limit to the number of people with whom one can maintain stable social relationships, which is approximately 150 people. But social media has tricked our brains into thinking we can maintain meaningful relationships with hundreds or thousands of people simultaneously. This creates what psychologists call social overload. Our brains become exhausted from trying to track and maintain too many relationships, so we default to shallow interactions with everyone instead of deep connections with a few people. The paradox of choice also affects modern friendship. When you have unlimited options for social interaction through dating apps, social media, and online communities, you never fully commit to developing any single relationship because you're always aware that other options exist. This creates what researchers call relationship FOMO, the fear that investing deeply in one friendship means missing out on potentially better relationships. Ancient philosophical traditions understood something about friendship that modern psychology is just rediscovering. Quality relationships are essential for human flourishing, but they require virtues that consumer culture actively discourages. Aristotle distinguished between three types of relationships: friendships of utility, based on what you can get from each other; friendships of pleasure, based on entertainment and enjoyment; and friendships of virtue, based on mutual respect, shared values, and commitment to each other's growth. He argued that only friendships of virtue provide lasting satisfaction and contribute to human flourishing. But modern friendship culture focuses almost entirely on utility and pleasure while completely ignoring virtue. We connect with people because they're fun, entertaining, useful for networking, or good for our social image. We rarely develop friendships based on character, shared values, or mutual commitment to each other's authentic growth. The Stoic philosophers understood that real friendship requires what they called sympatheia, a deep interconnectedness that goes beyond personal benefit. Seneca wrote, "Every new friend is a new good, and not even death can take away the good that friendship has provided." But this kind of friendship requires seeing other people as intrinsically valuable rather than instrumentally useful. Eastern wisdom traditions offer even deeper insights into why modern friendship fails. Buddhism teaches that suffering comes from attachment and ego-driven desires, but it also teaches that genuine compassion and connection are essential for spiritual development. The Buddhist concept of metta, loving kindness extended to all beings, creates the foundation for relationships based on service rather than self-interest. But here's what Buddhist psychology reveals about the modern friendship crisis. Most of our social interactions are driven by what Buddhists call ego clinging. the desire to enhance our self-image, gain social status, or feel better about ourselves. We unconsciously use friendships to feed our ego rather than to genuinely connect with another person's humanity. This creates what I call friendship as consumption. We approach relationships like consumers approaching products, asking, "What can this person do for me?" instead of, "How can I serve this person's authentic well-being?" Research in positive psychology has identified that strong social relationships are the single most important factor in human happiness and life satisfaction. The Harvard study of adult development, which has followed subjects for over 80 years, found that good relationships keep us happier and healthier. But the key word is good relationships, and most modern relationships don't qualify. Here's what makes relationships truly beneficial. According to decades of research, emotional safety, where you can be vulnerable without fear of judgment. Mutual support, where both people actively help each other through difficulties. Shared meaning, where you're building something together that's larger than individual interests. And authentic intimacy, where you know and accept each other's real selves, not just public personas. Modern friendship culture fails on all four counts. We've created social environments that punish vulnerability, discourage mutual support, focus on individual benefit rather than shared meaning, and reward performance over authenticity. But here's the most disturbing part. This isn't happening by accident. The same consumer culture that profits from keeping you insecure, competitive, and constantly purchasing also profits from keeping you lonely and isolated. Lonely people buy more products, consume more entertainment, and are more susceptible to advertising that promises connection, status, and happiness through external purchases. Think about it. Who benefits from a society where people don't have deep, satisfying relationships with each other? Who profits when people are emotionally dependent on brands, celebrities, and products rather than on authentic human connections? The answer is obvious. Anyone selling solutions to problems that genuine friendship would solve naturally. The beauty industry selling self-confidence that secure friendship would provide for free. The entertainment industry selling connection that real relationships would offer authentically. The therapy industry selling emotional support that intimate friendship would deliver naturally. We've been conditioned to see friendship as a luxury rather than a necessity, as something that happens automatically rather than something that requires intention and skill, as a byproduct of other activities rather than as one of life's primary purposes. But here's what ancient wisdom and modern science agree on. Without authentic friendship, human beings cannot thrive. We become anxious, depressed, physically ill, and spiritually empty. We lose our capacity for empathy, trust, and genuine happiness. We become easy targets for manipulation because we're starving for the connection that only real friendship can provide. Now let's examine how digital technology has systematically destroyed our capacity for authentic friendship while creating the illusion that we're more connected than ever. This isn't just about spending too much time on phones. It's about how digital interaction has rewired our brains in ways that make real friendship feel impossible. The first way technology destroys friendship is through what psychologists call continuous partial attention. When you're with a friend, but constantly checking your phone, responding to notifications, or mentally tracking your online interactions, you're never fully present with the person in front of you. And presence, full, undivided attention, is the foundation of intimate connection. But here's what's really insidious. We've normalized this divided attention to the point where giving someone your full focus feels weird, intense, or even inappropriate. When someone puts their phone away and really listens to you, It can feel overwhelming because we've become so accustomed to superficial, distracted interaction. Research shows that the mere presence of a smartphone reduces the quality of face-to-face conversations and the level of empathy people feel for each other. Even when the phone is turned off and face down, knowing it's there creates what researchers call absent presence. Your body is with your friend, but part of your mind is always monitoring your digital life. The second way technology destroys friendship is by replacing deep conversation with shallow broadcast. Social media has trained us to communicate through status updates rather than personal exchanges. We share information about our lives with everyone simultaneously rather than having intimate conversations with specific people. This creates what I call friendship inflation. When you broadcast your news to hundreds of people at once, individual relationships lose their specialness. Why call your best friend to share exciting news when you can tell everyone at once? Why have a personal conversation about your struggles when you can post a vague status update and receive generic support from your entire network? The result is that our closest friends often learn about our most important life events at the same time as distant acquaintances. We lose the intimacy that comes from being someone's first choice to share news with, and we lose the depth that comes from having conversations tailored to specific relationships. The third way technology destroys friendship is through what psychologists call asynchronous intimacy. Digital communication allows us to craft our responses, edit our thoughts, and present carefully curated versions of ourselves. This feels safer than real-time, unedited interaction, but it prevents the spontaneous vulnerability that creates genuine connection. When you text with someone, you can think about how to appear funny, smart, or interesting. When you post on social media, you can delete and rewrite until your thoughts sound perfect. But real friendship requires unedited authenticity, the willingness to be imperfect, spontaneous, and genuine in real-time interaction. The fourth way technology undermines friendship is by creating what I call validation addiction. Social media provides constant microdoses of approval through likes, comments, and shares. This trains our brains to seek external validation for every thought, feeling, and experience we have. But real friendship can't develop when both people are constantly seeking validation from each other. Authentic relationships require the ability to be with another person without needing them to make you feel good about yourself. They require caring about someone else's well-being, even when it doesn't benefit you. They require giving support without expecting immediate reciprocal validation. The fifth way technology destroys friendship is through what researchers call relationship substitution. Instead of developing the emotional skills necessary for human intimacy, we increasingly turn to digital alternatives that provide the illusion of connection without the challenges of real relationship. We get our social stimulation from parasocial relationships with influencers, celebrities, and online personalities who make us feel connected to them even though they don't know we exist. We get our emotional support from AI chatbots, online communities, or therapeutic apps, rather than from human beings who can offer genuine presence and care. We get our entertainment from streaming services, rather than from the unpredictable, messy, but ultimately more satisfying experience of spending time with real people who challenge us, surprise us, and help us grow. But perhaps the most devastating way technology undermines friendship is by eliminating what psychologists call productive boredom. Genuine friendship often develops during unstructured time when people have nothing specific to do except be together. Some of the deepest conversations happen when you're just hanging out with someone without any agenda or activity. But digital technology has, eliminated boredom from modern life. Every moment of potential quiet connection is filled with phones, apps, streaming, or digital stimulation. We've lost the ability to just be with each other without external entertainment, which means we've lost access to the deeper levels of connection that only emerge during unstructured, undistracted time together. Here's what research reveals about the psychological impact of this digital destruction. People who spend more time on social media report feeling lonelier, not more connected. People who communicate primarily through digital means develop what researchers call empathy deficit. That's a reduced ability to read emotional cues, understand other people's perspectives, and respond appropriately to social situations. We're raising a generation of people who are honestly more comfortable interacting with screens than with humans, who find real-time conversation more stressful than text-based communication, who prefer the controlled environment of digital interaction to the unpredictable reality of face-to-face connection. But here's the most disturbing part. Many people prefer their digital relationships precisely because they're shallower, more controllable, and less demanding than real friendships. Digital relationships let you maintain the illusion of connection without the vulnerability, commitment, and emotional labor that authentic friendship requires. This creates what I call friendship avoidance, disguised as social engagement. People stay busy with online interactions specifically to avoid the deeper connections that would actually satisfy their need for intimacy, but would also require them to be more authentic, vulnerable, and emotionally present than they're comfortable being. Beyond technology, there are, deeper cultural forces that have systematically undermined our capacity for authentic friendship. Understanding these forces is crucial because they affect how we think about relationships, even when we're not using digital devices. The first cultural force is what I call achievement obsession. Modern culture teaches us that our worth is determined by our accomplishments, that our time should be spent on activities that advance our careers or improve our status, and that relationships are valuable primarily for networking or social capital. This creates what researchers call instrumentalist thinking about relationships. Instead of valuing people for their inherent worth as human beings, we unconsciously evaluate them based on what they can do for us. Can they help our career? Do they make us look good? Are they fun to be around? Do they provide useful connections or opportunities? But authentic friendship requires what philosophers call intrinsic valuation, caring about someone's well-being simply because they matter as a person, not because they provide benefits to you. When relationships become instrumental, they lose the unconditional acceptance that makes genuine intimacy possible. The second cultural force is, individualistic conditioning. Western culture teaches us that independence is virtuous, that needing others is weakness, that self-reliance is maturity, and that emotional interdependence is, unhealthy codependency. But humans are fundamentally social beings who evolved in interdependent communities. Research shows that people who try to be completely self-sufficient actually become more anxious, depressed, and psychologically unstable than people who maintain healthy emotional dependencies on others. Real friendship requires admitting that you need other people, that you can't handle life entirely on your own, that receiving support from others is not a sign of failure but a recognition of your humanity. But individualistic culture makes this kind of healthy vulnerability feel, shameful. The third cultural force is comparison culture. Social media has intensified our natural tendency to compare ourselves to others, but comparison is the enemy of authentic connection. When you're constantly measuring your life against other people's lives, you can't be genuinely happy for their successes. or authentically supportive during their struggles. Comparison creates what psychologists call relational competition, unconsciously competing with your friends for status, success, happiness, or social approval, instead of collaborating with them for mutual growth and support. This makes friendship feel threatening rather than nourishing, because other people's good news becomes evidence of your inadequacy. The fourth cultural force is, busy culture. Modern life has normalized being constantly overwhelmed, overscheduled, and emotionally unavailable. We've turned busyness into a status symbol and availability into a sign of failure or lack of ambition. But real friendship requires what researchers call relational availability, having the emotional and temporal space to be present for another person's needs, even when it's inconvenient. Authentic relationships can't develop when both people are constantly rushing from one obligation to another, always tired, always stressed, always focused on their next task rather than their current connection. The fifth cultural force is therapeutic culture. While therapy can be incredibly valuable, therapeutic culture has taught us to pathologize normal human emotions and to seek professional solutions for problems that genuine friendship would solve naturally. Instead of turning to friends when we're struggling, we're encouraged to seek professional help. Instead of working through relationship conflicts with the people involved, we're taught to process our feelings with therapists. Instead of building emotional resilience through community support, we're told to develop self-care practices that isolate us further. This creates what I call friendship medicalization, the belief that emotional support should come from trained professionals rather than from people who know and care about you. While professional help is sometimes necessary, this mindset prevents us from developing the mutual care and support that healthy communities naturally provide. The sixth cultural force is consumer relationship thinking. We've been taught to approach relationships like consumers approaching products. We evaluate people based on what they offer us. We trade up when we find better options. We expect instant gratification and immediate satisfaction. But real friendship develops slowly, requires patience, involves compromises, and becomes more valuable over time, rather than providing immediate benefits. Consumer thinking makes us impatient with the natural development process of authentic relationships and makes us constantly evaluate whether we could find better friends elsewhere. Ancient wisdom traditions understood something that modern culture has forgotten. Friendship is not a transaction, a convenience, or a form of entertainment. Friendship is a spiritual practice that develops your capacity for love, service, and connection to something larger than yourself. The Greek concept of philia described friendship as a form of love based on virtue, mutual respect, and shared commitment to each other's flourishing. This kind of friendship wasn't just personally satisfying, it was considered essential for a meaningful life and a healthy society. But modern culture has reduced friendship to something much more superficial: social networking, entertainment, sharing, emotional validation seeking, and status enhancement. We've lost the understanding that real friendship is transformative. It changes who you are, challenges you to grow, and connects you to deeper meaning and purpose. The result is that most people today have never experienced what Aristotle called friendship of virtue. They've never had someone care about their character development more than their comfort. They've never had someone challenge them to be better rather than just affirm who they already are. They've never experienced the profound satisfaction that comes from being genuinely known, accepted, and loved for who they really are. Now comes the most important question: how do you rebuild your capacity for authentic friendship in a culture that has systematically destroyed it? How do you develop real connections in a world designed to keep you isolated and superficial? And how do you break free from friendship simulation and start experiencing genuine human intimacy? The first step is what I call friendship intention setting. You know, most modern friendships happen accidentally through proximity, convenience, or shared activities. But authentic friendship really requires intentionality, the conscious decision to prioritize deep connection over social convenience. Start by identifying the difference between acquaintances and potential friends. Acquaintances are people you enjoy spending time with but don't know deeply. Potential friends are people whose character you respect, whose company genuinely nourishes you, and with whom you feel safe being vulnerable. Choose 3 to 5 people who fit the potential friend category and make a conscious decision to invest in developing deeper relationships with them. This means prioritizing time with them over social events with larger groups, and choosing quality interaction over quantity of social contacts. The second step is practicing what I call vulnerability courage. The education system and social media culture have, trained vulnerability out of most people, but vulnerability is the only pathway to authentic intimacy. You simply cannot have real friendship while hiding your real self. Start with what researchers call graduated vulnerability, sharing progressively more authentic parts of yourself as trust develops. Begin by expressing genuine opinions instead of just agreeable responses. Share actual struggles instead of only positive updates. Admit when you don't know something, rather than pretending to have all the answers. Practice what I call emotional authenticity, matching your outward expression to your inward experience instead of constantly performing positivity. If you're struggling, say you're struggling. If you're excited, express excitement. If you're confused, admit confusion. Most people are so hungry for authentic interaction that your emotional honesty will actually be refreshing rather than burdensome. The third step is developing what we call presence practices. You see, real friendship requires the ability to be fully present with another person, but let's be honest, modern life has trained this capacity out of most people. So, you need to consciously rebuild your attention span and emotional availability. When you're with someone you want to develop a deeper friendship with, put your phone in another room. Yes, not just face down or on silent, actually out of sight. Practice giving your complete attention to what they're saying, how they're feeling, and what they need from the interaction. Learn what researchers call active listening. Listening not to respond, but to understand. Instead of waiting for your turn to talk, focus entirely on understanding their experience. Ask follow-up questions that show you're genuinely interested in their thoughts and feelings, not just waiting for them to finish so you can share your own story. The fourth step is practicing something I call friendship maintenance. Real relationships require ongoing effort that goes beyond just hanging out when it's convenient. You need to actively invest in your friendships the same way you would invest in anything else you value. Remember important events in your friends' lives and follow up about them. Check in during difficult times, even when they haven't asked for support. Celebrate their successes, even when you're struggling yourself. Make plans based on what would be meaningful for them, not just what would be fun for you. Practice what psychologists call relational generosity, giving more to your friendships than you expect to receive. Now, this doesn't mean being a pushover or allowing people to take advantage of you. It means approaching friendship from a mindset of service rather than consumption. The fifth step is creating what I call friendship rituals. Authentic relationships develop through repeated shared experiences that create emotional bonds and lasting memories. But, modern life rarely provides natural opportunities for this kind of bonding. So consciously create regular, meaningful interactions with your closest friends. This might be weekly coffee dates where you really talk, monthly adventures where you try new things together, or annual trips where you can spend extended time connecting without daily life distractions. The key is consistency and intentionality. These interactions should be protected time that you prioritize over other obligations. They should involve activities that encourage conversation and connection rather than just passive entertainment. The sixth step is developing what we call conflict courage. The education system taught us that conflict is bad, that disagreement is disrespectful, that harmony should be maintained at all costs. But real friendship requires the ability to work through disagreements, express different opinions, and address problems directly rather than avoiding them. Practice what researchers call constructive conflict. The ability to disagree with someone while still caring about their well-being, to address problems while still maintaining respect, to be honest about difficulties while still being committed to the relationship. Learn to distinguish between conflicts that threaten relationships, like attacks on character or attempts to control, and conflicts that strengthen relationships, such as honest expression of different perspectives or needs. Authentic friendship can't develop when both people are constantly walking on eggshells to avoid any potential disagreement. The seventh step is what I call digital detox for relationships. You need to consciously reduce your reliance on digital interaction and increase your investment in face-to-face connection. This doesn't mean eliminating technology entirely, but it means using technology to enhance real relationships rather than replacing them. Set boundaries around digital communication with your closest friends. Instead of texting constantly, save conversations for when you're together in person. Instead of following each other's every move on social media, let there be mystery and discovery in your relationships. Instead of maintaining connection through likes and comments, maintain connection through quality time and genuine conversation. Practice what I call analog intimacy, connecting with people through activities that don't involve screens. Cook together, take walks, have conversations without looking anything up on your phones. Experience the deeper connection that becomes possible when you're not constantly distracted by digital stimulation. The eighth step is developing what I call friendship courage. Real friendship requires emotional risks that modern culture discourages. You have to risk rejection by reaching out to people. You have to risk vulnerability by sharing your authentic self. You have to risk disappointment by having expectations of mutual care and support. Start taking these emotional risks in small ways. Invite someone to hang out one-on-one instead of only seeing them in group settings. Share something personal instead of keeping conversations superficial. Ask for support when you need it instead of pretending you can handle everything alone. Remember that most people are just as hungry for authentic connection as you are, but they're also just as scared of vulnerability as you are. Someone has to go first. Someone has to model what authentic friendship looks like. Someone has to be brave enough to prioritize depth over breadth, quality over quantity, authenticity over performance. The final step is what I call friendship investment mindset. Real friendship requires treating relationships like your most valuable assets rather than your lowest priority activities. This means protecting time for friendship even when you're busy, investing energy in relationships even when you're tired, and prioritizing connection even when it's inconvenient. Schedule regular friend time, the same way you schedule work meetings. Put relationship maintenance on your calendar the same way you put professional obligations. Treat social connection as essential self-care rather than optional entertainment. But here's what's most important to understand. Rebuilding your capacity for authentic friendship isn't just about having better relationships. It's about reclaiming your humanity in a world that profits from your isolation. It's about developing the emotional skills that make you resistant to manipulation, marketing, and the psychological programming that keeps you consuming instead of connecting. When you have authentic friendships, you become less susceptible to the promises of consumer culture because you already have what those products are really selling: acceptance, belonging, security, and love. When you have real human connections, you need less external validation, fewer status symbols, and less entertainment to feel satisfied with your life. As we reach the end of this journey together, I want you to imagine two different versions of your future. In the first version, you continue living with the friendship patterns you have now. You maintain your social media networks. your casual acquaintanceships, your surface-level interactions. You stay busy with work, entertainment, and digital stimulation. You remain safely isolated behind the walls of performance and self-protection that modern culture has taught you to build. In this version, you might be successful by external metrics. You might have impressive careers, beautiful homes, exciting experiences to post about online. But you'll also wake up at 3 a.m., sometimes feeling profoundly alone, wondering if anyone really knows who you are, questioning whether anyone would genuinely miss you if you were gone. In the second version, you choose to rebuild your capacity for authentic friendship. You prioritize depth over breadth, vulnerability over performance, presence over productivity. You invest the time and emotional energy required to develop genuine intimacy with a few people who really matter to you. In this version, you might not have hundreds of social media friends or packed social calendars, but you'll have something infinitely more valuable: people who know your real struggles and love you anyway, people who celebrate your authentic successes and support you through genuine failures, people who see your true self and choose to stay. Which version sounds more like a life worth living? Here's what I want you to understand. The friendship recession isn't happening to you. It's happening because of choices that millions of people are making every day to prioritize convenience over connection, efficiency over intimacy, digital interaction over human presence. But every epidemic ends when enough people change their behavior. Every cultural trend reverses when enough individuals choose a different path. Every social problem becomes solvable when enough people decide to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. You have the power to end the friendship recession in your own life, starting today, not by changing society, not by fixing other people, not by waiting for better circumstances, but by becoming the kind of friend you wish you had, by offering the kind of authentic presence you wish others would offer you, by prioritizing the kind of deep connection that makes life worth living. Think about the people who have had the deepest positive impact on your life. Were they the ones with the most social media followers? Were they the ones with the busiest social calendars? Were they the ones who always appeared successful and put together? Or were they the ones who really listened when you needed to be heard, who showed up when you needed support, who saw your potential even when you couldn't see it yourself? The people who transform our lives aren't the ones with the most friends. They're the ones who know how to be real friends. They're the ones who choose depth over superficiality, authenticity over performance, service over consumption. Here's my challenge to you. For the next 30 days, live like the kind of friend you want to have. Be present when you're with people. Listen more than you talk. Ask questions that show genuine interest in others' inner lives. Share your authentic struggles instead of just your successes. Prioritize face-to-face interaction over digital communication. For the next 30 days, choose one person you want to develop a deeper friendship with and invest intentionally in that relationship. Reach out not because you need something, but because you care about their well-being. Invite them to activities that encourage real conversation. Be vulnerable about your own experiences and create space for them to be vulnerable about theirs. For the next 30 days, resist the cultural forces that keep you isolated. Put your phone away when you're with people. Choose quality time over social media scrolling. Value authenticity over image management. Prioritize relationship maintenance over career advancement. And here's what I predict will happen. You'll start to remember what it feels like to be truly known by another human being. You'll rediscover the profound satisfaction that comes from genuinely caring about someone else's well-being. You'll experience the security that comes from having people in your life who accept your authentic self, not just your public persona, but more than that, you'll become part of the solution to one of modern life's most devastating problems. Every authentic friendship you develop creates ripple effects that inspire others to choose connection over isolation, depth over superficiality, love over loneliness. The friendship recession isn't just a personal tragedy, it's a social emergency. When people don't have authentic relationships, they become more vulnerable to manipulation, more susceptible to extremism, more likely to make decisions based on fear rather than love. A society without genuine friendship is a society without empathy, trust, or hope. But every real friendship you develop strengthens the social fabric that holds civilization together. Every authentic connection you create models what's possible when human beings choose to prioritize each other's well-being. Every vulnerable conversation you have demonstrates that it's safe to be human in a world that often feels inhuman. Here's what ancient wisdom and modern science both confirm. You cannot be truly happy without authentic human connection. You cannot be psychologically healthy without genuine intimacy. You cannot live a meaningful life without people who know your real self and choose to love you anyway. The friendship recession has convinced millions of people that they're alone, that authentic connection is impossible, that everyone else is too busy or too selfish to care about genuine relationship. But this is a lie. The truth is that most people are desperately hungry for the same authentic connection you're craving. They're just as scared to be vulnerable as you are. They're just as tired of superficial interaction as you are. And they're just as ready for something real as you are. Someone has to go first. Someone has to model what authentic friendship looks like in a world that's, kind of forgotten. Someone has to choose vulnerability over safety, depth over efficiency, love over loneliness. Why not you? Why not now? Why not today? The world is full of people pretending to be too busy for friendship while secretly dying of loneliness. The world is full of people performing happiness on social media while privately struggling with isolation. The world is full of people who have mastered the art of networking while never learning the art of connecting. But you don't have to be one of those people. You can choose to be someone who remembers what friendship actually means. You can choose to be someone who creates space for authentic human connection in a world designed to prevent it. You can choose to be someone who models what it looks like to be fully human in an increasingly digital world. The friendship recession ends when people like you decide it ends. It ends when enough individuals choose to prioritize love over efficiency, presence over productivity, authenticity over performance. It ends when people remember that we need each other, not just for practical purposes, but for the fundamental human experience of being known, accepted, and loved. Your potential friends are out there right now, scrolling through social media, wondering why they feel so alone despite being so connected. They're going through the motions of social interaction while starving for genuine intimacy. They're performing friendship while longing for the real thing. They're waiting for someone brave enough to be vulnerable first, someone generous enough to invest in relationship without guarantees, someone wise enough to prioritize depth over breadth. They're waiting for someone like you. Stop waiting for permission to need other people. Stop apologizing for wanting authentic connection. Stop pretending that you can live a fulfilling life in isolation. Start being the friend you wish you had. Start creating the connections you wish existed. Start building the community you wish you lived in. The friendship recession isn't inevitable. It's a choice that millions of people are making every day. And starting today, you can choose differently. Your future self and the friends who are waiting to meet you will thank you for having the courage to be authentically human in a world that's forgotten how. Welcome back to your humanity. Welcome back to authentic connection. Welcome back to real friendship. The recession ends with you.